says, "You're going over, right?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "I'm going to take a Viper Bomb tonight. It's his finish." He looks at me and says, "You're going to what?" I said, "Yeah." I says, "You're going to win. I'll come in. I used to carry a briefcase at the time. I'll take the swing, miss, turn around, up and down. Are you sure about this?" "Yeah, I'm sure." "All right." I'm pretty sure we went out first. And when Viper came through the curtain, I saw his wife and I saw fans that knew us all look at each other and go, "Oh shit." So the match starts, and Chief's cage was so tall that it was brushing up against the light fixtures. And at one point, they were fighting out on the floor and they hit the cage.
Oh, Lord.
One of the light bulbs shatters. Now I'm looking, going, I'm in a cage. The guy I don't like. Glass all over the ring.
Right.
All right. Why not?
Hey, it was your idea.
It was my idea. I got myself into this mess. Match ends just as expected. I go in, take the wild swing, briefcase goes flying, turn around, up and down. It was basically just lifting spine buster.
Yeah.
So I had to jump, which is fun because white men can't jump and fat white men can't jump any higher.
Duly noted.
Yes, good, yeah, for future reference. In fact, we did a battle royal one time right after all that issue, where everybody in the match did at least one Viper bomb,
Mm-hmm.
and we just fade to black.
Yeah, just faded black. We're still rolling, so we'll just go ahead. I'll edit that out. Um, there's a couple other
Okay,
things, phone ringing and all that
I was
shit.
just gonna say the stuff that nobody cares about. It's live. It's real.
Remember, for just $9.99.
But we did a battle
You
royal
can
one
have a
time
shit show too.
where like everybody did a Viper bomb. I mean, I've got pictures me giving like four of them, and then I took one and I was eliminated from the battle royal. So that was the end of it. I said if I see him tomorrow, I could walk by him today and I would probably say, "Hey, how's it going?" No, I'm not coming back, and he hasn't run a show in 3 years. But I just learned to put it behind me.
Right.
Because if you hold on to that bitterness, it I didn't like who it turned me into. Because it did. The whole thing turned me into a very bitter person. And I like to think that's not who I am. You know, I'm pretty easygoing, can get along with anybody. Even if I don't like you, I may just say hello and go on my way. Just some you're not going to have a 20-minute conversation with,
Right.
or an hour that we're at, or whatever we're at now.
You got me wondering now. 40 minutes.
Not 40 minutes. If you've sat through 40 minutes of me talking, I apologize.
All right, so moving on. What's your top 10 workers that you've worked with?
That I've worked with.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Um, I'm going to say John Schuyler's towards the top of the list. One of my good friends. We've been friends for almost 9 years now. BJ Hancock, another great one. When he was healthy and active, Derek Rise was unstoppable. Unfortunately, a knee injury kind of put an end to that right as he was on the cusp of something big.
Right.
I see what Andrew Everett's doing on TNA right now, and I think there's no reason that wouldn't have been Derek Rise if he was still healthy today. Which he's healthy now, but he's just, after the injury, that was enough of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, speaking of Andrew Everett, I think he's a tremendous talent, a great local talent that's getting some national recognition now. Stephen Walters, Dash Wilder, down at NXT. We traveled the roads many years. A lot of I still to this day I love the fact that I can send him a text message, and within minutes he'll respond. Um, Usually it's me making the old inappropriate "I don't know if she can wrestle, but you should see her box" joke because it's one of his favorites. Always makes him laugh. I said that at a show to him in Columbia years ago, and he just thought it was the funniest damn thing he ever heard. Other ones that I'm really fond of right now, I think Tracer X is doing great things. He's still young and getting that experience, but I think he'll be one to watch. Anthony Henry's another one. Um, I love the Bravado brothers. I think the world of Harlem and Lance. Um, and these are a lot of these guys, the local guys that I'm mentioning. If you're watching this and you're following independent wrestling, or if you're not, follow independent wrestling. Because the guys that I'm mentioning, and I say this on every show, these are the guys that someday you're going to see on NXT,
Right.
Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, Ring of Honor, Evolve, FIP, or as I like to say, God help us, TNA. Nothing against TNA, it's just they're kind of at the bottom of the barrel right now.
Yeah. And see, the funny thing is, half those guys that he's mentioned are already there.
Yeah, they've
Um,
either made appearances on there or are right at the cusp. In fact, I think everybody, with the exception of maybe Tracer X, has done at least an extra spot before.
right.
Um, Skylar and the Bravados were just on the Total Nonstop Deletion recently. In fact, the Bravados I thought were one of the most entertaining parts of that, just because they showed up dressed to the nines for this weird ass brawl.
Ugly Ducklings were there too,
Yes,
weren't
the
they?
Ugly Ducklings were there, and those are three guys. Going back to the Heat thing, I'm glad you mentioned the Ducklings because that was something I wanted to bring up. I actually didn't care for Rob Killjoy for a few years. I had more
Rob Killjoy's response. Yeah.
coming soon.
Yes.
Yeah, this may be news to him. I don't even know if he knows that I ever had issues with him. But years ago, I took a kid named Joey Reimer under my wing.
Hmm.
I was working for his cousin in Forest City at SWA. And there was something about Joey. He wanted to learn, but every week he was going out with, and usually in the same match with Rob Killjoy, Shay Shay McGrady, or some combination.
Yeah.
And if you're wrestling the same person every week and doing the same thing every week, you can only learn so much.
Right.
And I saw an opportunity to get him out on the road because I was branching out even more. And I started taking him on the road with me. And they didn't care for that. That was, hey, we're in my eyes, and this could be just, me being blinders on. In my eyes, I was taking their bump monkey. Somebody they could just beat the holy hell out of.
Yeah.
Because and I saw the same thing years ago with Derek Rice, where he was wrestling the same match against the same guys over and over, to the point where he would come up to me and go, "What'd you think of the match?" And I said, "It's nothing I haven't seen before."
Yeah.
I said, I call it a blindfold match, where you've done it so many times you can do it blindfolded and not miss a spot.
Yeah.
And that's where I felt Joey was running on a treadmill. He had that potential to break out, and he did. He hit the road. It built up his confidence because he was getting seen. Uh, he was down in Anarchy, which was not only an opportunity to wrestle other talent, but a chance to be seen on television, uh, syndicated, and on YouTube. You can still see some of the shows. I think all of them are on YouTube now. If you look up NWA Anarchy or Anarchy Wrestling, or I think sometimes with those, uh, particularly fond people will post some of his matches. Joey was a good-looking kid. I'll admit that. Not why I took him under my wing, despite what some like to think, but but I your crotch have something to say?
I hate when people do that. That's the
the, the,
thing.
the
Is
quotes bother you?
yeah, yeah. That and this.
Ah,
Talking on his phone and giving that right there.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um.
But anyway, back to the thing. I held that against Rob, and it was more because of the promoter that was working with him. Because I think Joey got a lot of heat off of me unnecessarily.
Yeah.
This was a kid that, and we use this in wrestling too. Everybody wants to see everybody succeed until you start doing better than they are. And to Rob's credit, and this is me saying this publicly, it may have taken him a little longer, but he's getting that same publicity and notoriety now that Joey was getting a couple of years ago. It just took him a little bit longer to find that hook that people grabbed onto.
Yeah.
Because I'm a huge fan of the Ducklings. I love everything they do. They're super guys. Uh, Yeah, I love everything they do.
Yeah.
So I put them as three to watch. They're going to be doing big things in 2017 and beyond.
Oh yeah. All right. So moving on. What's the 10 worst gimmicks that you've come across from people that you've worked with?
Worst gimmicks.
It's not necessarily the people, but you know, their deal.
Oh gosh, worst gimmicks. This is a tricky one. Um, I talked about cyanide that I managed earlier.
Hmm.
Cyanide was essentially a abyss gimmick, which is comical because one show we had the both of them on the show. So hey, you try to do abyss's gimmick with abyss standing right there.
Right.
See how that works. Um, Talking about, I guess Marlon didn't care for that either.
Apparently not.
I
Um,
think he realizes we're here and he's outside.
yeah, we'll cut that out. So maybe going back to the Biscuit.
Yeah, it was almost identical, the mask, everything. So that was one. There's a guy up in North Carolina that looked like Mick Foley, wrestled as Dick Foley. I have a funny story about him. I think I've told you this one before. Uh, I went to a house show here in Greenville back in '06, and that night it was a Raw show in Greenville. SmackDown had a pay per view that night in like Greensboro.
Mm-hmm.
So after the Raw show, I go to Bailey's, which was a sports bar in Greenville. I don't think they're open anymore. And I ran into a bunch of people I knew that were at the show,
Mm-hmm.
and with them was Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
They're like, "Hey, we've got the side room. You're welcome to join us." All right, cool. So I'm watching a pay per view with Jeff Hardy. Dick Foley was there, and I'll never forget because Matt Hardy wrestled Shane Helms early on the show. And afterwards, Matt goes and hugs somebody at ringside. And the announcers go, Matt Hardy hugging some family here in Greensboro. And Jeff goes, What? And I turned and I looked at Jeff and I said, Not true. He goes, I don't know who the hell those people are. But later on in the show, there's a guy standing in a doorway watching us. And he's just staring a hole through Foley. And he finally comes up to me and he says, You're Mick Foley. And I start laughing because I know it's not. And I know this guy's drunk. And Foley's swearing up, No, man, I'm not. Man, you're the real Mick Foley. Yes, listen, man, I'm not the real Mick Foley. That's the real Jeff Hardy, but I'm not the real Mick Foley. And the drunk turns and looks at Jeff and he goes, Nah, you're not Jeff Hardy. You look like him, but
Oh
you're
God.
not. And at this point, my head's under the table. I'm laughing so hard.
All right. So that's two.
Um,
If you can't get to 10,
I,
we'll bump it
I, I
down to
don't I don't
five.
I don't know if I can get to, I may not be able to get to five because a lot of the really bad ones I just tend to block out.
Right.
And I've seen countless crazy gimmicks. The mental hospital. Um, there was one guy who used to wrestle as a Walmart employee.
Okay, that's another one. We'll count that as three.
Yeah,
Uh,
I remember that. I can't remember the name now, but I just remember it was like a weird. Anytime I get weird stats, I remember those because this was just like a bunch of grocery products for his weight.
oh God.
Um, maybe if I find it, I'll post it in the comments on this.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the screen. Ah, there you go. Ah.
Yeah. It's all works. You know who I'm talking to. Because that's one thing I do with everybody that I work with. I put their stats in a computer. It's all on an Excel sheet. Because that way when I'm at a show, I don't have to run up to everybody and go, "How much do you weigh again?"
Right.
You know, and I'll if I don't work with somebody for a long time, I'll go up and ask if anything's changed.
Yeah.
I did a show with PWX recently, and two of the guys that wrestled, they wrestled each other. It was David Starr and Chip Day, are notorious for having like a dozen nicknames. So I walked up to both of them and I said, "You have anything new for me?" And I kid you not, they both handed me their cell phones. They had it wrote down on the phone. They weren't going to rattle them off to me.
Right.
Which, to their credit, they trusted me with their phones because wrestlers, you never give your phone out.
Right.
I've had mine changed to German, Arabic, Spanish. Um, I've had pictures of everybody's asses taken on my phone. Which
That's
I will say one thing: after coming out, people are a lot less likely to look at your pictures on your phone.
yeah. 1001 dick pics.
Yeah,
Literally nothing but
yeah,
dick pics.
and not a one of them mine. So,
That's
something to think about.
that's almost as bad as duct taping boots to
Yeah, I've had that happen. BJ
to the
taped my
throat.
briefcase to a table one time with my shoes. I think there's something under, which of course was great because I was carrying a pair of scissors with me.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what?
The scissors were in
In the
there.
briefcase. I always like the one moving a ceiling tile and putting somebody's shoes up there and hiding it. I think there's one wrestler still has a pair of them hiding in a ceiling tile at an armory in Marion, North Carolina. I don't think he ever found those.
All right, so moving on, we'll not do the worst gimmicks anymore. We got three of them. That's good
Yeah, I
enough.
don't like to bury
Um,
people anymore.
uh,
That's not my nature.
what? Happy. What's your favorite wrestler of all time? Could be anybody you've worked with, haven't worked with. Um,
For years I said Mick Foley because I loved. He was a full entertainer. He could wrestle. He could tell jokes. He was comical. But when it comes to in-ring, absolute favorites are Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express. And it doesn't matter which version. Dennis and Bobby, Stan and Bobby, all tremendous talents. Uh, and I love everything that they do. I love Jim Cornette to death. Jim Cornette and Bobby Heenan, two of my favorite people in the world. I've had the opportunity to meet both many times. Uh, in fact, one of my favorite stories involves those two. Um, Greg Price does a Legends convention in Charlotte every year. And this particular year, they were going to do a photo op with Jim Cornette and Bobby Heenan. Take my wallet, take my money, I'll get what's left at the end of the weekend.
right.
Well, as I got to the show, I found out that they were going to do another photo op with the two of them and J.J. Dillon of the Four Horsemen. Well, shit, it's three of the top managers of all time for like $5 more.
Right.
Again, here's my wallet. So I go to take the picture. And for those of you who don't know Bobby Heenan has battled throat cancer for well over a decade now.
Yeah.
He's lost part of his jaw. He doesn't speak a lot.
Right.
He does, but not very often.
Yeah.
Most of the time, if you see him at appearances and somebody's trying to interview him, this is all you're going to see him do. Because the finger still works.
Show the camera that, not me.
Well, you can't flip off a camera. More fun to flip you off. I would flip off the horse you rode in on, but no horse. It's a different show, folks. Anyway, back to the Bobby Heenan story. I go in and they had a room set up, kind of backdrop like this. The line was over here. So I get in and there's Cornette, Bobby sitting on a bar stool, J.J. Dillon. I walk in behind Bobby. He doesn't see me walk in, but he senses somebody's behind him for the
Right.
next picture. And Bobby's sitting there and all of a sudden he goes, turns and looks at the photographer and says, I think we're going to need a wider lens. I laughed to a headache because somebody that I idolize who can't speak very well or that much took 10 seconds to make a wisecrack about me.
Right.
And I wish when he said that, they would have taken the picture then. Because even in the picture, they're coming down. We're coming down from the laugh,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm still ear to ear Cheshire Cat smiling. And picture was done, and I leaned down to Bobby and I said, "Sir, you have no idea how much that meant to me." And I went around the backdrop and I dropped to a knee. I was laughing so hard. And Franklin Dove, who I worked with at Anarchy, the promoter of Anarchy at the time, takes the picture right after me. And he comes over, he goes, "What the hell happened?" And later on, when they print out the picture, they give you like an 8 by 10 photo. I looked at it and I went, I have to go say something to Bobby. And he was over at a table with his wife, and I had spent pretty much what I had, so I wasn't buying anything. And he was signing autographs, but it was 15 bucks, whatever. I don't even remember now. I just didn't have it on me. I just wanted to go over and thank him again for that.
Right.
And I walked over to his table and I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Heenan, I hate to bother you, but I just wanted to let you know." And I showed him the picture. We didn't need the wider lens. And he kind of gave me a, without missing a beat, his wife said, "Would you like him to sign it?" And before I could say anything, he had it in his hand and was signing it. And I
Right.
went, "I'd be happy to."
Right.
Nobody there taking money, nothing. He just signed it, handed it back to me.
Yeah.
Jim Cornette was at the next table. I'm like, all right, I got one. Gotta get them all now.
Right.
And Cornette, no problem, signed it. Unfortunately, JJ had left for the day or was gone. So I'm like, crap. So I got 2/3 of this picture signed.
Right.
I did luck out. I saw JJ in Las Vegas at the Cauliflower Alley Club the first year I went out there, and he signed it. He didn't remember the story, but got a kick out of it, and he was happy to sign it for me. So that's probably one of my favorite pieces of memorabilia that I have is signed by all three of them, because you can't create moments like that; they just happen.
Right.
And Bobby and Jim Cornette have quick wit like I do, which I think is what gravitated me towards them.
Yeah.
It was just they made me laugh. I said they were the bad guys, but you couldn't help but laugh at them.
Yeah.
And that's why when I was managing, I don't manage anymore. I was never afraid to act a fool and look like an idiot because at the end of the day, you've seen 3 hours of wrestling. You've seen 6, 7 matches, sometimes more. What are you going to remember when you walk out? Are you going to remember who was in that first match? No,
Mm.
you're going to remember something stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what. And I've had so many people that I've got into fights with while I was managing, arguing back and forth. And they'll come up to my table at intermission and they'll just stare me down and they'll start laughing. And I go, that was the most fun I've ever had.
Right.
Glad I could do it. This is what we do is it's escapism.
Right.
So and that's if I can make you forget your troubles, it makes it all worthwhile.